Welcome, one and all, to the Pause, Rewind, and Play podcast. We're on another remote session here tonight. It is a joy and wonder. We are currently going to be talking about Skyfall, which will be freaking legit. But we also have a special guest. We got Vince and Josh. And Vince, why don't you go ahead and introduce our guest tonight?
Yo, so we're doing a James Bond movie. In my mind, I cannot hear the name James Bond and not think of my cousin Andrew Chappell. So I reached out. I got cousin Eddie here on the show. How you doing, cousin Eddie?
Is it because I look so good in a suit, or because I just kill it with women in general? Like, which is the reason why you always think of me?
I think it's probably because of your unhealthy obsession with the film series. Unhealthy or healthy?
Well, let me tell you, James Bond does wear a tracksuit in this, so even if I don't look great in Armani, nobody can rock an Adidas tracksuit like this guy. So, James Bond, right here.
Yeah.
No, I love James Bond. I'm super excited to be here with you guys. Well, not really here, but look at your beautiful faces on this Zoom chat. No free advertising, sorry, on this chat. And talk about James Bond, the best. I love it. The best, maybe the best Bond movie? I don't know.
Whoa.
Maybe we can get
I mean, that's what we're here to figure out, right? By the end of the show, we'll have figured that, hopefully have figured that out.
Yeah.
I guess we'll have to debate it.
We'll have to figure this out. Well, let's kind of jump in. Andy, great to have you. Thank you so much for joining us remotely. Hopefully you and your family are staying safe in this awesome, amazing time of sheltering wherever you may be. Let's start and dive in. Josh, you been watching anything good this week?
Definitely. I, like Casey, was able to binge all of Tiger King this week.
Yes.
So that was a ride and a half, let me tell you, and a strangely powerful and thought-provoking ending, let me tell you. So
don't spoil it. I have one episode left.
I won't. That means we'll have to do a Tiger King episode then, Vince. If you're watching it, we got to do it.
Yes, we have to.
I would be fine with that. I honestly cannot believe that this is a real story.
It's insane. It's just crazy. And like I said, like when you get to the end, there's this one part. I won't spoil it, but just like look for it. The guy whose name is Josh is campaign manager. He says something that just like made me like think a ton about like how our experience of viewing the documentary mirrored Joe and Carol's experience they had with each other. So just look for it. It was super crazy, super cool, awesome. And then also, you know, with how much you guys know me and know the movies I like, you would have thought that I would have seen this already, but I haven't. And today I watched the classic movie that came out 10 years ago, The Social Network, for the first time.
What?
I know.
Never
Crazy,
seen
right?
The Social Network. Wow.
Yeah. That's crazy. Yeah, I know. So Jesse Eisenberg, Andrew Garfield killed it. Oh, gosh. I definitely think I would revise my best of the decade list, and I would probably jump to the top of 2010. So
Nice.
crazy.
That's
awesome.
impressive. I remember watching that at Snow College, Vince, and being like, I'm going to build something great one day. And we're building this podcast now, so I think that dream has been fulfilled in my mind.
I'm going to build something great one day, and then we made this, and all like it just failed completely.
Oh gosh, that's what happens though. Failure breeds great things. Vince, what have you been watching? I know you said you're on the last episode of Tiger King, but anything else great come past your desk?
I talked a little bit about how I've been watching like documentaries last week. So I watched McMillions, I watched Hip Hop Evolution, and then I got into this Tiger King thing, and that made McMillions and Hip Hop Evolution look like tame, like boring compared to Tiger King. And how, I mean, when I saw everyone started talking about Tiger King, I was just like, yeah, whatever, hype's real, I'll get around to it eventually, blah 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 blah. I never thought I'd really jump into it because I was kind of tired of documentaries. But on that first episode, and about 20 minutes into it, I had to like sit down because I was like watching on my phone while I was like doing laundry or whatever, or washing the dishes, and it got like 20 minutes into this documentary. I was just like, wait, what? And every episode it just gets deeper and crazier, and I just can't believe that there's like, I mean, this story actually exists, that there's people like this in the world, that, and like, I'm sorry, maybe this is a misrepresentation of wild big animal keepers or whatever, but it seems like the whole world of big cat owners are all crazy, because you've got the crazy redneck, you have the crazy cat lady, you have the crazy cultist. Like it you can't write this. It's the craziest thing.
Has
And I feel
Hope watched
so,
it?
yeah, she has. I haven't talked to her about it yet, though.
I was about to, I'd be super interested to see what Hope says about it.
I don't know a lot about this thing. It's just a crazy, crazy glimpse into that world that I had no idea existed, though.
Oh,
What about you,
it's so
Andy?
good.
What are you watching?
Well, I loved Tiger King. I want to get some feedback here. Tiger King's reality television dressed up as a documentary. Can I just say that? If you guys like Tiger King, you got to check out Bachelor in Paradise, and I'm not joking. Bachelor in Paradise
I have
is
to
where
get off this podcast now.
No,
Bachelor in Paradise, they take the contestants from Bachelor, put them on a sex island, and let them go crazy and backstab each other. And it's the best thing on television every year. So you've had Tiger King, great. Now check out Bachelor in Paradise. You'll love it.
I would have, about a couple months ago, I would have judged you for being into Bachelor in Paradise, but they did that whole they did a spin-off here in Utah, a local thing that I watched and kind of got into. And after watching that, I kind of get it now.
It's so good. Okay, but what have I been watching seriously? Love that. So I'm up to date on Westworld. I'm one episode behind on Devs, so I'll probably watch that tonight. And then I binged the Amazon series 000. Have you guys heard of that? Like in 3 days.
That good?
It was a tough watch. It was really violent. Some pretty troubling scenes, but so good.
I haven't even heard of it.
It's incredible. The acting is unbelievable. It follows basically just a massive drug deal, from the dealers in Mexico to the facilitators, who are a family out of New Orleans, to the buyers, who are Italian mobsters in Italy. And it's, I mean, it was really, really good. I don't know how many shows you guys have watched on Amazon. Jack Ryan was okay, but this is, I mean, much better than Jack Ryan, I think.
Cool. Yeah, I've only watched like The Boys on Amazon, and that's about it. So.
Oh yeah, no, it's like it's serious. Like it's kind of like a serious show, and it's really, really good. So check it out.
Amazon cranks out some pretty good stuff. Like they did The Marvelous Miss Maisel, which was good. The Man in the High Castle was amazing. I don't know if you guys watched that.
Isn't Fleabag through Amazon as well?
Oh yeah, Fleabag's really good. Man in High Castle fizzled for me in like the second season. I need to get back into it, but 000 just kind of grabbed me and took me for a ride. Don't watch it with your wives. If you have wives or girlfriends, it's a pretty hard watch. Like,
all right.
Graphic.
All right.
So anyway,
I'll let my wife pass on that. We've been watching a ton of The Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt right now.
Unbreakable.
So good.
They're alive, damn it.
It's a miracle. Exactly. That was the big thing. Then we watched The Hangover
on Netflix
which
right
is
now.
Phenomenal. Every time I watch it, it never gets it never gets old. And by the time I come out of this quarantine thing, the self-imposed quarantine, I'm gonna look just like Alan. Like I will look just like Alan, full beard, and I'm gonna wear a satchel. I think I said this last time. I don't know, but. And then we watched a very classic film. Josh's family seems to be the only family I ever have known who watched this film, called What's Up, Doc?
I love What's Up, Doc? You've never... Vincent. Get off the podcast.
Me and you are just two completely different people here.
Yeah. I don't know. It's a classic. Like when I first like joined Allie's family, they were all like quoting this movie, and I was like, I don't get it. And so we watched it, and I was like, this is pretty funny. And then we found it on iTunes for like $4, and so we bought it and watched it again. So it's been good. Yeah, anything else that we've been watching or need to talk about before we dive into this week's movie?
I do have one super quick plug. If there are any Star Trek fans out there, I just finished watching the first season of Picard as well. And it's definitely worth, if you can binge it in 1 week, it's definitely, you can get a free week trial of CBS All Access and check it out. So if you are a fan, even in the slightest, of The Next Generation, you'll like Picard. The end.
Didn't they like allow it to stream for free right now? Didn't they put up the whole first season for free?
I
Like
don't
you don't
think
have to have the
so.
subscription.
I think they're giving you a free month instead of a free week when you sign up or something like that.
Probably.
Oh.
Yeah, because I'm not
gonna lie. CBS All Access, I watched Picard on it, and then I watched the new Twilight Zone, and then I looked at everything else they had, and I was like, "There's
Done.
nothing that I want here."
Yeah.
So
Dang. Well, Picard it is. I've actually been wanting to watch it, so maybe I'll dig down and do it. Also, Community is on Netflix now, so I guess I can watch it and not be such a whiny person.
I watched like 15 episodes today.
So good.
Oh, I'll look into it, guys.
Me
All
and
right, let's talk
never
Skyfall. Like, why are we here? let's talk about this great Bond film. Vince, you got the facts for us?
I do. I have some stats here. So, James Bond, created by Ian Fleming, wrote a bunch of novels back in the day, or that most of these movies are kind of based on or around his character, right? Directed by Sam Mendes, written by Neil Purvis, Robert Wade, and John Logan. It was released on November 9th, 2012, with a budget of $200 million. The movie grossed $1.1 billion. It's the only Bond movie to cross the billion mark.
Really?
Yep.
At the time, it was the seventh highest movie ever.
Day didn't cross $1 billion?
Mm-hmm. Rotten Tomatoes, critics gave it a 92%, audience score of 86%, and IMDb gave it a 7.7. The movie was nominated for 5 Oscars, 3 nominations. First one was cinematography, best original score, and best sound mixing, and then they won the Oscar for original song and sound editing. Let's take a stop there for a second and recognize the theme sound, or Skyfall, the song Skyfall, and how incredible that song is.
I've been singing it all day, not gonna lie.
I don't know any of the words for it, so I just kind of like wander around and I'm just like, and the sky fall, and the sky fall, and the sky fall.
Doesn't it go like Take It All Forever?
And sky fall.
We have to make sure that we do recognize the great. So he didn't win this year or that year. We do have to recognize the great Oscar-nominated cinematography by Roger Deakins. Mm-hmm. In case you guys don't remember, Roger Deakins is also the cinematographer for 1917. So this was him and Sam Mendes teamed up with this first. Yep.
He was also the cinematographer for Blade Runner 2049. So we've kind of like, we're kind of doing all of the Deacon films, the Deacon of the Deep, as we like to call him. Anybody get that reference? Anybody? Nobody? That's a Waterworld reference. Come on, guys, get with the picture.
Looks like you're streets ahead, Vince.
I don't remember that.
Yeah, in Waterworld, the bad guy with the eye patch over his eye, they call him the Deacon, and he first refers to himself as the Deacon of the Deep.
I haven't watched Waterworld
people.
In a
Come
good
on.
decade, to be honest with you.
Cinematic masterpiece. Moving on. This movie starring Daniel Craig as James Bond, Judi Dench as M, Javier Bardem as Silva, Oh yeah, is that her first name, Dame?
I don't know.
Or is that a title?
Calls her Dame Judi Dench because she's a dame, right? Let's look it up.
Yeah, she's
a
lady knight.
Because it did say Dame Judi Dench on there, but I wasn't sure if that was like a title or her name, and I just kind of moved on.
It is honored, and Dench was named an Order of the British Empire in 1970 and honored with the title of Dame, Commander of the British Empire in 1988.
Whoa. Commander of
So
the British Empire.
you be careful.
She's a treasure. She was like in her 70s in this movie too. She's an older lady, and she's still acting, right, to this day. Isn't she in like that British show that everyone likes?
Downton Abbey?
Yeah.
I
No,
don't know. I just
could
know
be
Downton
wrong.
Abbey exists.
Anyway, I could be wrong about that. Double check on me. Anyway, last, Ralph Fiennes is also in this as Mallory.
Oh, he's so good.
Yeah,
It's
casting.
also good he has a nose in this film.
You didn't want him to come back as Voldemort?
No.
It's James Bond's one true foil, that Voldemort.
James Bond is the Horcrux, everyone.
Casting considerations. Rumored was that Rachel Weisz was going to be in the movie. That never panned out.
Dang it.
Silva, they considered having Kevin Spacey play Silva before they got Javier Bardem.
No.
And this is you can look up the interview with Javier Bardem. He was actually offered the role as James Bond at one point in his life.
Really?
He says, yep, this is a quote talking to Cinema Blend. Years ago, I was offered Bond. I don't remember what movie it was for, but yeah, it was just not the time. I didn't feel it was the time for me to do something like that. And also, I was doing something else, so I passed. This time, when I read it, I felt like it was very powerful material and I wanted to join. Okay, so maybe not James Bond specifically, but he was offered a role in a James Bond movie before this one.
Right.
Huh.
Well, I mean, there's been a great cast of villains in James Bond, obviously, but Silva is up there as one of the most creepy, menacing, truly troubled villains. I mean, ever, right? He's crazy like the old Bonds from the 60s and 70s, and yet new school with all his technology. I love him in this. Maybe we'll get into that more later, but gosh dang, he was so good.
This is really, like, I'm excited to talk this film with you. There's a lot of depth, and I feel like Javier Bardem as a villain is great. And he plays a villain in one of my favorite films, which is No Country for Old Men.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I think I said that right. I'm saying it's one of my favorite films, and here I am like, I think that's what I said. Get a little stage fright up here. But it's really cool. So I guess starting off, like, didn't you guys have anything you guys want to just bring to the table about this film, or what are your initial reactions? Spoiler free still.
I always like to think that I've seen a lot of stuff, but this is the first James Bond movie I've ever seen.
What?
How is that possible?
I don't know.
You are a child, Vince. I mean, Josh.
Thank you.
I don't know how it's possible. I mean, like, you guys kind of know about like the house I grew up in or whatever, and just movies that we weren't allowed to watch a lot of times. But even then, afterwards, just looking at it, I'm like, how did I never ever come across anything or go to the theater for anything for James Bond? And I watched this movie and I loved it. I thought it was really good. I'm not like that person that's like, James Bond's the most amazing thing ever, but I definitely liked it. And especially you guys talk about this one being one of the best ones, I could definitely see. I'm like, hey, I get the appeal. Super cool. Soundtrack amazing, cinematography amazing, just all around super solid film. So there's like a first reactions from someone who'd never seen it before until 2 days ago.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Well, you're lucky, like, because now, I mean, if you want, you can go back and watch all these James Bond movies for the first time. Like, I have seen them so many times that it's like hard to. That's why I watched it with my dad last week, like, to kind of get ready for this, and I was like, I'm jealous that you get to watch this movie for the first time because I love this movie. So I also watched Casino Royale and Quantum of Solace kind of in preparation for this. And I think one of my first observations was it really seemed. So have any of you guys watched the documentary they made about? It was right before Skyfall came out. Gosh, I'm not gonna be able to remember the name of it, but they talked about the reason why they left Pierce Brosnan and went to Blonde Bond with the muscles is because why they went with Daniel Craig was because it was right after September 11th, and in the previous James Bond movie, Pierce Brosnan is surfing a car down a 50-foot tidal wave, and it just seemed kind of silly for James Bond. And so they wanted to do something serious. And so really especially in Casino Royale and then in Quantum of Solace as well, you see like a very brutish Bond, right? He's the guy that's going to run through the wall instead of jumping over the wall, right? Like, whereas, like a Sean Connery would seduce the wall, right? Like, what I want to say is when you get to Skyfall, that I think they have kind of backed off that point of we're trying to have this really, physical Bond, and he's allowed to be more like the James Bond of old. And I think they did a really good job with the fan service of really paying homage to the original James Bond, like to the series that led up to this, especially in the closing scene. It's like a shot for shot, remake of the first 10 James Bond movies. So that would be my only, as we're starting off here.
Yeah, so I have a question real quick. Did the Austin Powers have any effect on that as well? For some reason, I remember hearing that maybe the Austin Powers movies pointed out how silly those old James Bond movies were. So the kind of one of the reactions was, oh, we need to get away from the silly over the top tidal wave stuff and get into something a little more real. Is that not an actual thing?
If it's not, it should be, because that's a very astute observation. I don't know. I don't know. I just know it was the September 11th thing. So, but
all I know is the course. Yeah, all I know is the course correction was genius, and it needed to happen because those Pierce Brosnan movies, they're great. They're so much fun, and they're so silly and over the top, and it reminds me so much of my childhood. Like GoldenEye is still up there, top James Bond for me, and it always will be. But the change that they took from Casino Royale, the Quantum of Solace, to Skyfall, and that gradual kind of story arc that Bond goes on is so much more interesting than anything they ever did. And I can't remember. I've seen Casino Royale so many times because it was my favorite for so long. Is it that one that they kept referring to Bond as a blunt instrument and a brick to be used, or was that in Skyfall?
No, that was Quantum, actually, because
it's Quantum?
The whole thing with Quantum is like kind of Bond's story arc is he just kind of kills everybody before he can question them.
Okay.
And so, yeah, where he's a blunt instrument is Quantum. But yeah.
Okay, well, I'm with you, man. Casino Royale was always for a long time my favorite James Bond movie. I did try to watch it this week though, and I found myself getting a little bit bored because I'd seen it so many times, and I know the story beats so well and the action scene so well and the sequences so well that the poker scenes just didn't work as well for me as they do now. Skyfall, I don't think I've seen since like theaters. It's been years and years and years. And I remember the first time seeing Skyfall in the theater, I walked out a little not disappointed, but not understanding the hype over it. I remember walking out and being like, I got kind of bored in the middle. I got kind of, I didn't really follow everything. I don't really know. Rewatching it this time around, I had none of those problems. I absolutely loved it. I do love like we were saying, they introduced James Bond in Casino Royale as this blunt instrument, and then I don't remember really what happens in Quantum of Solace, and then they came back in Skyfall, and they decided to take the old ridiculous Pierce Brosnan and before era James Bond and kind of juxtapose it with the new Casino Royale like realism. And so you do have the callbacks to the old and the new, like you're talking about, but they kind of reference that throughout the entire movie of old versus new, out with the old, in with the new. Is there a place for someone old like James Bond, or is it a new world with new technology? Do we continue with kind of these silly tech and gadgets, or should we move on to just a man with a gun and espionage, And I think it was so much smarter than a lot of those old James Bond movies. And I absolutely loved the idea of a James Bond who is later in his life and not physically capable, and he's trying to do all these things and be who he once was, but he can't. I just think the movie's incredible, and I don't know if they'll be able to top it. I'm really excited to see No Time to Die, to see what they do with it, but I think this is, after the disappointment that was Spectre, I think this one might go down as the best one that they can make.
I'm definitely excited to go back and watch Casino Royale, because even though I'm not super great, I do like to play my fair share of poker, and so putting James Bond together with that, not gonna lie, I would be pretty hyped to see that. So I'll let you guys know when that happens.
Yeah.
It's pretty rad. I actually really remember Skyfall, like, not as, like, I honestly, like, when you're like, let's watch this, I really couldn't remember who the bad guy was. I could only, like, this is what I can remember, and so don't, like, judge me too heavily, okay? I could remember the scene on the train, which was awesome. I could remember the scene in Scotland, which is just a feat in itself. And I could remember meeting, is it Q, right? The guy who makes the reference, like, oh, what'd you expect? Like a pen, type thing. Like,
Yeah.
I like that kind of wit and cleverness with it. And so that was kind of what I remembered. And then I was on a bike ride yesterday with a friend, and we were doing our social distancing thing, just riding around 10 miles around the area. And he was like, "But is it with this guy? Is it with this guy? Is this with this?" I'm like, I'll be honest with you, I don't remember Skyfall as well as I remember Casino Royale or Spectre, or it was weird. I was like, what the heck? And my friend had such high, was talking very highly of it, and so I was like, man, this is a little embarrassing. And then revisiting it, I was like, oh yeah, this is a great film. And Javier Bardem, he's great. He's amazing. So it was fun. Like, I enjoyed it, and it was a good chance to kind of refresh and kind of see again this masterpiece that is, Skyfall.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys, didn't remember it very well. Okay, I guess, like, leading into that, like, should we cross into spoiler territory? Are we good to invite in the open wave of Bond madness?
Let's do it.
Yes. Spoilers.
Spoilers. Okay, let's do this. All right, Andrew, since you're kind of the whiz about this, like Bond and stuff like that, kind of having been a longtime fan, like, what is your interpretation of Skyfall in itself? Do you think that it served the purpose to, like, really solidify Daniel Craig as Bond? Do you feel?
Yeah. So going back to the comments I made earlier, blonde Bond and this jacked Bond who goes through the wall instead of seducing it, right? Like, obviously, I was very skeptical. Casino Royale was amazing. Quantum of Solace was a bit of a disappointment. And so to see them come into Skyfall and to really get back to the heart of who James Bond is, reintroducing Q, we're into spoilers now, and having, Moneypenny and having, M, obviously Dame Judi Dench was an incredible M, but coming back and having Mallory become N in the end was just so, just tickled all those nostalgia bones inside of me. Like, it was just incredible. But it was interesting the way they got there. I'm going to talk about one thing right now. Like, so there's a point where Q, I don't know how you guys do this if you want to go chronologically through the movie, but no. I will, because since it kind of goes to your story. There's a point in the movie where he first meets Q, and they're at the museum and they're looking at the ship, and he's like, "What do you see?" And he's, I see this magnificent old battleship being towed into port to be dismantled. It was the greatest battleship of its generation, but now with the invention of steam engines and coal, it's obsolete, right? Like, and so we get that, like, and that's kind of one of the themes of the movie is I can do more damage with this laptop in my pajamas than you could do in a year, right? Well, what I think is really interesting and kind of an answer to your question is one of the very, very last shots when they're in M's office, you get this shot of both M and 007, and the painting on the wall is the Battle of Trafalgar, which is when the British Empire and the Spanish Empire had this massive war at sea. And so there's just these massive battleships all lined up shooting at each other. And it was kind of this great callback of, I mean, yes, technology has changed, but let's not forget the grandeur and how great these things are and how they are, at least my interpretation was, they're shaping the world, right? And so really, really great moment inside the movie, right? Like, for Bond and for M to say, we secret agents still have a place in this world, but also kind of to take it back and go super meta was kind of like James Bond is eternal, right? Like, James Bond, regardless of the technology, is going to be around here forever. And isn't it awesome? Like, the whole last 3 minutes of the movie are, how great is James Bond? Is it just the greatest movie? It is, right? And so loved it. Happy to, like, go through all the scenes, and wherever this takes us, I can sprinkle.
I love what you're saying there. Like, I love how, I mean, they talk so much about it, like back in the old James Bond movies and again in this world, the past, like they always knew who their enemies were. I mean, this is a big part of the whole like courtroom scene with M talking to the prime minister, whoever it was, how she's just like, you know, in a time like this where we, you know, it's not the Cold War, it's not Russia is not our enemies, China is not our enemies, you know, we know exactly what's going on. It's so transparent. Why do we need your department? Why do we need the secret agents running around doing this kind of stuff? And Judi Dench has this giant monologue about how now it's more important than ever to have this department, because the people that are doing the terrible things are the people that are doing it in the shadows that you can't see, and we need to fight people in the shadows with our own people in the shadows. And if like to consider this, you know, Bond and his people being obsolete is something that you can't do, that they're going to be around forever, because there's always going to be those people who need to track down those terrible people, you know.
Yeah. And exactly what Bond said. He said, you have to have somebody there to, Q says, well, we have to have somebody to pull a trigger, and Bond responds, or somebody who doesn't. Mm-hmm. Right? Like really, like a really cool look inside. It's so easy, you know, for us in our technology to, you know, sit behind a computer or like, you know, click a button and have a drone shoot a missile, but to be up close and personal, you know, the kind of fighting and the kind of choices Bond has to make, like, are still very important and necessary.
I love that part, actually. I like to think that like James Bond is more than just like a meathead. He's a meathead with a brain, yeah. Right? Like you said, he knows when to make the decision to shoot or not to shoot. He knows how to kind of call it as it comes. And I think he kind of refers back to that when he resurfaces after, you know, being dead for some time, when he kind of like goes in and meets M, and he's sitting in her apartment, and she's kind of like, what are you doing here? How'd you get in here? Like, kind of like, there's so much to it of like, I made all these decisions, you should try it sometime, and here's why I decided it. And it really showed you that there is a point to the madness of the whole discussion that's going on, whilst they're trying to make things kind of work in that way, I suppose. I don't know. I thought it was really good. I think that there's a lot of good thought in this film, like more Definitely. Than just like here's bashing, banging, and blowing up. It's like, here's some thought, here's some reasoning. And a lot of times I think we, the common people, and I use myself as common folk, we sometimes forget that there are really hard discussions that happen in higher courts that allow us to do the things that we need to do, and for agencies to manage us the way that they need to be managed. I don't know. Josh, what do you kind of think about, like, do you think this movie is a smart movie in that way?
I think this movie is a very smart movie in that way, as far as the way that it looks like what you guys were talking about with the whole, like, kind of the higher level of it, like secret agents, and why, like, there would still be a place for them in the world versus not. And so much of the movie is sort of about that. It's looking at the situation between should there be, shouldn't there be. It's also looking at the situation of Bond, if he's too old, if he's not old enough, or if he's not old enough, if he's too old, or if he's still got it, you know, and seeing what he can do with his limited physical capacity, both with him getting old and along with his injury, with how he was shot and whatever. Because some key, you know, moments of the movie, especially when he's on the Lair Island, is it comes down to that, is him not being the same person, being shaky with a gun and everything like that. And we talked about it being a really smart movie, and I think it does that in all aspects of the storytelling. I did want to throw out a fun fact that might be extremely wide known. Obviously, me being new to the whole James Bond thing, I might just be like, isn't this so cool? And everyone's like, yes, we've heard that a million times. The whole thing with the Komodo dragon scene. Do you guys, everyone knows about this? Maybe I shouldn't even.
No, what is it? I don't. I just know the scene. I don't know anything else.
So the Komodo dragon scene, it was very expensive to shoot. They said it was like that. I don't know if it was like the whole scene with them being in there was just all shot together, but especially like the Komodo dragon part, they They shot it and it was millions of dollars. And when they did it, Daniel Craig originally, he had bought them and the director was like, yeah, cool, all that stuff, blah, blah, blah. Sam Mendes, he had bought these really expensive like gloves, sort of, that looked super dope that he was wearing when they shot it. And then after they had shot it and packed and were like doing other stuff, there was like an executive assistant that was like, wait a second, like part of this battle, like the villain gets the gun and tries to shoot Bond, but they can't because it has to have like his palm print, right? And so the villain can't shoot him because he doesn't have his palm print. But they're like, wait a second, he was wearing gloves this whole like time. How did they do that? And so like everyone was like, wait a second, like, yeah, that's true. And so they had to look at their options. And so they're like, we can go back and we can reshoot the entire thing. And they're like, that is going to cost millions of dollars to reshoot the entire thing. So what they did is for that entire sequence, they just like colored, CGI'd his hands to be his pigment color instead of those.
Oh my gosh,
colors.
You're kidding. I'd never heard that. That's nuts.
Yeah. I never noticed it either. I didn't notice
They
it.
did a good job.
Now I'm going to go back and look at his freaking hands.
So they do. They
like
say that
able to watch it without noticing it now.
So they say that like if you didn't know it, you wouldn't notice because I didn't. But they say like if you do know and you look, his hands look like pudgy, like he's like a fat like James Bond just by his hands, just because of because they have to color the entire glove, right? And so it'll make his hands look like bigger than they are really. So fun fact. And I did confirm it because I saw it on like a site that was like cool James Bond facts, but it was kind of a weird site, and so I'm like, I don't know about this. So I checked out a few other places, and it's true. So,
I gotta shout out Sam Mendes for not only this scene out on this island, out in China or whatever, but also for the scene at the end with the big fire, the explosions, the house and everything. It was very reminiscent to that scene in 1917 when the city's on fire.
I thought this guy thing.
Yeah, I don't know if it's Sam Mendes or if it's the Deacon of the Deep, but
probably both.
But man, they know how to make these set pieces so incredibly beautiful and like using the lighting to make these sequences look so incredible. That casino, I would absolutely love to go to that casino and check that place out and spend a night gambling and hanging out. Like just the entrance alone, going across that river, the candles everywhere, the fireworks going off in the sky. It's one of the most
Komodo dragons.
All right,
the Komodo dragons. It's the most James Bond thing I've ever seen.
Speaking of the cinematography, if you had to rank them, which looks the coolest? James Bond entering into the casino underneath the dragon, the fire with the shadows, them running through the swamp and all that, or the scene in the building with the reflections when he's tracking down the assassin.
The jellyfish fight? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Wow.
The jellyfish fight.
Really
100% 100% the jellyfish fight. The jellyfish scene is the best fight scene in the movie. I'm a big fan of jellyfish over here. That's so cool the way he did it. He just set that up with those jellyfish kind of swimming around in the background, and it's just like these silhouettes just fighting each other. And then the next thing you know, everyone's falling off the side of the building. It's so cool and so up.
Yeah, the use of the glass there, the reflections, the neon lights. I mean, I just had never seen anything quite like it, right? Like it was just like you couldn't get your bearings, right? Like I'm like, I don't really understand what's happening because of all the reflections and everything's going everywhere, and it was like incredible. And that's one of the things I took notes, right, my last time watching it. And one of the things I wrote down was just, it's just beautiful, right? Like the whole thing is just incredible. They're in Istanbul, they're riding their motorcycles across, the rooftops. And then there's the whole scene with the train of Bond getting shot and falling off. I mean, even London, like the shots of London are incredible. Like the whole thing is just, you just can't, you just drink it up. Like, it's just like, I just love watching all of this, the use of shadow. And so, yeah, definitely really beautiful to work with. I do want to just, again, the scene of James Bond being shot off that train. Holy crap. Like, just incredible.
Yeah.
First off, I feel so bad for who we know now as Moneypenny. having had to like live with that idea of, oh crap, I just killed James Bond, the James Bond, and like the effects that has on her character going back, working the desk job, like not really. She says she wants to go back out and be in the field again, but does she really want to? Like that plays a toll on you psychologically. Even if you were the one who was, you were told to take the shot, it's still going to play on your mind. Like James Bond said it, like we mentioned earlier, James Bond said, you got to know when to take the shot, when not to take the shot. And did she make the right decision? Did she make the wrong decision?
Well, the decision was taken out of her hand. It was M who said,
she
take
did,
the bloody
but
shot,
she's
right?
still, yeah, but she's still the person there. I mean, James
I-
Bond, do you think James Bond would have done it if, James Bond, who always kind of rebels against authority?
Maybe. Like, I think it's like, I agree with you. It is tragic what happens to Moneypenny, because she really does just ride a desk for the rest of her career because she doesn't want to be in the field anymore. Even though in that scene in Parliament, she's pretty handy with a pistol, right? Obviously, she's a great shot. She, you know what I mean? That even though she hit James Bond and not the bad guy, still a pretty difficult shot. Moving train, not sure what the angles are there, the scope she's working with, but.
And if that guy wouldn't have ducked down just right at that moment, or I can't remember exactly how it was, but he moved right when the bullet hit.
Yeah.
But and then also that fall, like he fell a good distance. I don't know how he survived all that.
Because he's James freaking Bond, Vince.
Exactly.
Because that's his hobby, resurrection.
Resurrection.
Well, death doesn't treat him very well. That's the thing. Like James Bond says, spends 3 months on a beach and just looks like absolute hell afterwards. You know what I mean? Like he's now doing a bar trick with a scorpion on his hand. Like, oh, check out the white guy on this Caribbean beach. First of all, not great for your cover. Have you seen the white guy that does a scorpion trick? Wait, I think, I recognize that guy. No, but like he just looks terrible after 3 weeks on the beach, which who knew? Who knew that the beach life was so hard?
Mm-hmm. I mean, it just shows James Bond. He has to live with that sense of that rush, that sense of, what is the word I'm looking for? Like the
adrenaline.
The adrenaline rush. He's got to live for it. Even when he gets the chance to escape it, he can't. He's always looking for that, that dangerous thing. Getting stung by the scorpion.
If it kind of becomes like a fix for him. Like there's like a point, right, where it becomes the only way to be happy is by probably performing the tasks that he's been brainwashed or manipulated or trained to do. Like, of course, right, he knows how to make decisions on what he's doing, but also he's wired to kill, man. Like that's what he has, is a license to kill, a license to find people, destroy them, and get answers, essentially. And I think you'd miss it after a time, no matter how good the beach is. Like you cannot beat your favorite thing to do, and in this case, James Bond loves to kill. I don't know.
Well, that brings up a really interesting question, because Mallory, I guess the new Mallory, asks him, Bond, why did you come back? And one of the big, I think, overarching questions of this whole, one thing that Silva really asks him is, like, what makes you tick? Why are you doing the things you do? Like, is it for Queen and country? Like, do you love England so much that you're going to die for her? Like, look at me. I'm still secret agent, but I'm making millions of dollars and affecting the world the way that I want to do it. Like, what is your whole motivation? Why didn't you stay dead? Why are you, you obviously, like, where's it all coming from? And interestingly, I think that definitely Bond is an adrenaline junkie, but I also think, like, I mean, he's obviously a very passionate person, and his whole relationship with Judi Dench, is the driving factor behind a lot of his reasoning through all three of the new movies, right? Like, that's the whole reason why he comes back, is to hunt down the people that tried to kill M, right? Like, so yeah, I think it's interesting, the adrenaline junkie, but like, I think it is an interesting question of what makes Bond tick.
It's really cool that the Bond girl that in this movie is M herself. Like usually Bond has a love interest. He goes and he bangs some random girl, she gets killed, and then he gets with the girl he really loves. That's the formula, right?
Yeah.
This one, there is no Bond girl. The Bond girl is M herself. He's going to save her, to protect her. Whereas the villain is not this big like government entity, or this one person trying to take over the world or the universe, or shoot a laser beam from the moon, or whatever those old movies got into. This is a movie about revenge and protecting the ones you love.
Super personal.
And yeah, it's just the most personal storyline you can get. And even Silva is the same way. He's just like, he feels he has the same maternal relationship with M that Bond has. And you can kind of see the flip sides of the coins between the two characters, where Silva's over here kind of like saying like, my mother betrayed me and I tried to die and I didn't realize why I couldn't die. And it's because I needed to look in your eyes one last time and tell you how much you hurt me and how bad you did, like this bad thing you did to me. And then when he finally gets the chance to do it and looks her in the eyes, he can't. He's just like, Silva still cares so much for M as this mother that he's just like, you do it. Kill us both, put us both out of our miseries, end this for the both of us. And he wants her to shoot herself in the head and have the same bullet kill him. And he's just has this like poetic, like justice in his mind that he's just trying to achieve throughout the entire movie. That's what makes him such a cool villain, and so much different than some of the other James Bond villains who are just like, this guy throws a hat really hard and this guy has metal teeth. This guy,
and Jaws are very important villains. Okay.
Yeah. Well, what's crazy is like when you bring up this moment of the speech, right, where Silva's like, I had to come here, I had to look you in the eye one more time. And then he's just like, do you know what a cyanide pill does to you? Do you know what cyanide does to you? And he like pulls out his mouth. That was a part where I was like, I remember this. This is so freaking gaunt and gross, man. Like, that's like the craziest thing is like what these guys are just trained to do, being so loyal to Queen and country per se, right? And it's just like mind-boggling that this guy's like, oh, look at this. And like half of his face is gone. It's like literally like a boo moment. And I just was like, oh my gosh. And his motives, like you said, such revenge. Like, I don't know. I don't know if I would ever be that like hateful or spiteful towards someone who'd wronged me, but maybe
after months and months of torture.
Yeah, like
maybe
if I was put through that much pain, like torture, my mouth destroyed, had to rebuild, I may have a little vendetta to play out a little bit. Maybe I become V. Who knows?
When he pulls out his like teeth and his jaw kind of falls, that's such a, again, James Bond thing. The villains have some quirk, physical problem or something that makes them stand out, and his is pulling out. Like, it's cool because it's like, it's a callback to the original, like we've been talking about. It's a callback to the old age, but it's a new generation. And so it's like, it's memorable and it makes them stand apart, but it's not goofy weird like the guy in Tomorrow Never Dies, who has diamonds in his face, pulls out his jaw, his face kind of melts off, and it makes him memorable, and it makes him a very James Bond villain, but it doesn't make it goofy.
Well, if we're gonna talk about James Bond, well, obviously we are. The entrance of Silva coming down the elevator, walking through the racks of servers, and delivering that monologue in one shot as he walks up to Bond, I mean, you're just like holding your breath the whole time, right? Like, who is this eccentric? First of all, you almost want to laugh the first time. I remember when I saw the trailers, I'm like, this guy looks silly. How is this going to be the bad guy? And then it's literally like you are instantly on edge from this guy, right? Like the whole monologue about the two rats, or how you get rid of rats on an island. And then the weird sexual like tension that's between Bond and Silva. It's like, I mean, one of the great villain, I mean, not only of 007, but maybe of any movie. Like, just if you're to introduction of a villain is just so you just know immediately. And the other thing I wanted to bring up, it's an hour and 8 minutes into the movie. You don't meet Silva. It's an hour and 8 minutes into the movie. Like, it's unbelievable. And then from there, it just immediately becomes the Silva show, right? Like, Javier Bardem just completely dominates the whole movie from there on. And it's like, I mean, in the best possible way, though, right? Like, he's just so good. So I just wanted to bring that up.
I've got an interesting little tidbit here. Let me find the quote. So this movie, and Josh, being the big Dark Knight fan, Christopher Nolan fan that you are, I think you'll really enjoy this. Sam Mendes was just very influenced by Christopher Nolan and what he did with the Dark Knight movies, with Batman Begins and especially The Dark Knight. And I can see, as I kind of watch this and watching Silva and the way he manipulates everything that's going on, I can kind of see the Joker, from the Dark Knight in Silva himself. He's got this plan, and you think that he's losing, but really he's got a plan on top of that plan on top of that plan. I thought it was a really cool callback to what Christopher Nolan had done to change the genre at that time period.
Well, and also the touch of insanity too, right? Like you never know, is Silva, like obviously he's got some screws loose, but he's like crazy like a fox. You know what I mean? And same with the Joker.
I didn't think about that while I was watching it, but I definitely saw it like afterward. Like you just barely mentioned that, thinking about it, I'm like, oh yeah, I can see that. Especially with a lot of those, not only like character wise, but also looks like movie wise as well, with the shots and how they're done. Like one of my favorite shots of the movie, besides the ones that we mentioned, were when they were pulling up, when they were kind of sailing in to the abandoned island lair or wherever, and you've just got like that faraway shot where you can see the boat going in, but then you've also just got all these ginormous buildings that are just wrecked in sort of fog, and it's cloudy in the background, almost very like Inception-esque as far as when they're down in limbo and everything. It was very gorgeous. That was one of my favorite things for sure about the movie, with even though I did like the characters and everything, since I haven't been into James Bond or watched James Bond, it was obviously very easy to see the high quality filmmaking, from the score to the cinematography. Everything was gorgeous, and it was well put together to complement the movie and the story and the way it moved along. So
absolutely
very good. Which, super quick fun fact as well, while you guys get ready for the next segment, Skyfall, the song by Adele, was the first song written specifically for a movie to reach the Billboard Top 10 since Lose Yourself by Eminem in 2002. So 10 years. So super crazy.
Wait, Eminem, Lose Yourself by Eminem was written for a movie? Oh, it's 8 Mile. Never mind.
Yeah.
I'm an idiot. I
Remember
was like
when
thinking it was written for a Bond movie. I was like, what Bond movie was this that I missed out on?
That would have been dope. Yeah, remember
Was
the
it
one where
Ghetto
he
Bond?
the one where he forgot to show up for the award ceremony to win his Academy Award because he didn't think he was going to win.
Yeah.
Anyway.
That's funny.
So it's really cool to kind of like, with that idea in mind of like, oh, this Silva is James Bond's version of Joker in the Dark Knight universe. It's cool. It's cool to watch the movie with that idea in mind, and watching, like he's always, and Bond even says it in the movie, like he's always been one step ahead of us. He's always known what we're gonna do. He knew I had a radio in his, like he had to have known he had a radio in his pocket and let him leave it there. He had to
be
have,
captured.
like, he gave him the gun under the guise of, like playing with him, but really he's like, I'm giving you every opportunity to escape, to capture me, so I can get in this position, so I can kill Judi Dench, right? And then it gets to that point in the movie where Bond's just like, I'm done with this. I'm done playing with his games, and we're going to turn this around. And that's when they head out to Scotland, and you get more of James Bond's background, which, correct me if I'm wrong, Andy, is this the first we've ever gotten any of the James Bond movies, any of his like childhood, any of the information before he became an agent?
Yes, to my knowledge, yes. There was like some in one of the Roger Moore ones. I don't recall which. There was like some callback to him being like an aristocrat, right? Like being like a rich kid, but I don't remember which one. It never, like to my knowledge, no Bond has ever talked about his parents or where he came from or anything like that. And so, yeah, I do want to hit on one thing about being a step ahead the whole time. MI6 less secure than your local Smith's grocery store? Like, okay, so let's just back up here. So first of all, they plant a bunch of bombs, right? So blow up MI6. Okay, they have people within MI6 who are feeding them information. M, after her computer gets compromised, is like, but I just have to get this work done. I guess I'm just going to keep using the computer that has been hacked. So let's keep doing that. And then and then obviously he gets in, and Q, who, I know this encryption because I wrote it. But I'm just going to go ahead and plug in the laptop into the mainframe here. Let's try to get a read. And so it's just like come on, MI6, and that's after, in Quantum of Solace, there's the first thing you need to know about our organization is that we have agents everywhere, right? And then boom, 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 right? There's some spoiler alert here, Josh. Some double agent action in Quantum of Solace. So MI6 already knows that they have problems.
I'm gonna stop you right there for a second. I've got an interesting fact about this movie that will kind of clear up that plot hole for you. Producer Barbara Broccoli, that's her real name, Broccoli. Producer Barbara Broccoli said that the franchise will go Producer Barbara Broccoli said that the franchise will go on to other different stories for now. However, the reappearance of the Quantum Organization in later movies is still a possibility. Broccoli said, "I think in some way he will go after the Quantum Organization in the sense that it may become a trilogy, but we haven't really structured it that way." This movie, Skyfall, was supposed to be a soft reboot to the soft reboot that they made with Casino Royale. Right. So they were kind of viewing this as a maybe it's a part of the Casino Royale Quantum Solace storyline if we decide to, but we're going to make it as if it's not. And that's why the age gap feels a little bit different between Quantum of Solace and Skyfall, where all of a sudden, like, Bond is this old, beat up, in the field guy, whereas before he was kind of like just getting started and young. So that's kind of to kind of like give them a little bit of like defense there, is they weren't even like considering Quantum of Solace and Casino Royale.
So, well, I think that's why Skyfall is so good and why Spectre sucked. They tried to do a follow-up to Quantum of Solace, but they also tried to include Skyfall. Like, I'm probably gonna watch Spectre this week because I haven't watched it since theaters, but the reason Skyfall worked so well is because it was kind of its own standalone thing. And that's how all those early James Bond movies were, right? Like, it always ends with Bond will return, but it's not like there was kind of like loosely based a story going on. But, Vesper, his girlfriend from Casino Royale and Quantum was like his main driving force is like not mentioned at all, right? Like, which is kind of shocking. But again, I think that's what makes Skyfall so great. So I don't think it's a plot hole. I just thought it was just kind of funny. You know what I mean? Like, MI6, they should really check out some of McAfee's security products.
And you guys were talking about him being a step ahead the whole time, and just like maybe to finalize the whole him being a step ahead and being like the Joker, I think the scene where I most thinking about it felt that, not specifically Joker, just him being smart and a step ahead, where I also watching it was just like, whoa, what the heck, was when he's chasing him down in the sewers and then he has that explosion and I'm like, that explosion wasn't that big, and then the train just comes like down into the sewer. I was like, what just happened? Like, oh my gosh, that was insane. It was ridiculous, and that was one of the moments of the movie where I was like, this is amazing, like this is crazy, so good, super cool.
Was that to them? Nope, but that is. That's how I feel about that.
Shout out to them. That was a practical effect. They actually made that happen.
No way.
Wait, really?
Mm-hmm. Look into that one.
That's
freaking
crazy.
bonkers, man.
Wow. So let's get to the kind of the end of the movie. It all culminates with Bond kind of, you getting a glimpse of his backstory and his childhood and the way that he grew up in Scotland and his parents were killed. And the best recruits, as Judi Dench says, are orphans, and that's why he is so like good at his job, because he has no like family ties. He has, he's just one track mind kind of guy.
Can you believe all his family guns were sold to someone in Idaho?
Freaking Idaho.
He gets there and there's the old man and he's like, oh, hey, what guns do we have left? And he's like, well, we had all these guns, but the only one that's left is your father's old hunting rifle with some beautiful initials on it, sold to some hunter in Idaho. Random.
Side note, double barrel rifle. That sounds awesome. Never heard one of those before. Versus a double barrel shotgun. So it's awesome.
So apparently in early discussions of the movie, Kincaid, the guy who plays the groundskeeper, was written with the idea that would have been Sean Connery coming back and reprising a role within the series, which it really felt like that to me, especially in a world of Marvel and callbacks like they do this all the time in movies. When they reboot a series, they always bring back the original person to do something. Blade Runner, they brought Harrison Ford back, like the Star Wars series, they brought all the old actors back.
They brought Harrison Ford back.
Yeah. It really felt like this, like the way he reacted to like, oh, it's Kincaid. It's like, all right, who's this old man? We don't have any connection to him. It really, if it would have been Sean Connery, I think it would have had that effect on people. But Sam Mendes said that he felt like that would have been too jarring and would take you out of the movie because Sean Connery is James Bond. And to see him come back in a James Bond movie and not be James Bond, he was just like, that's not an okay thing to do.
Yeah. Well, and it would
Sean Connery has been retired for a minute from acting, hasn't he, though?
Yeah, he would have had to come out of retirement to do it.
Because the last film he did was The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, right? And that's like a failure in itself.
Well, okay, this is a side note. He did the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen because he passed on Lord of the Rings, right? What else? He passed on? Yeah, so he passed on Lord of the Rings and one other super popular series and was like, I guess I've got to get in one of these comic book kind of weird sci-fi things, and he went with the League of Ordinary Gentlemen, and it bombed.
And it was a fart. It was a literally unremarkable. Sorry, I just had to bring that up that Sean Connery hasn't been acting because he was in a flop at the end of his career.
Yeah.
So, but I could see that. Like, that would have been a beautiful thing, especially like I think of the groundskeeper, and I love that part so much. With his that guy had a max of maybe 5 minutes of screen time, but he made such an impact in that 5 minutes. Like, I was like, I feel like he's been here for like 3 other films with me. I didn't want what happened, and it was good.
Yeah, he was really good.
And I loved how this entire sequence turned into the James Bond version of Home Alone, where, like you said, Casey, they don't have any guns, so they just come up with the most like creative and unique ways to kill people within this house, and they just make it like a house of horrors with lights exploding and booby traps just everywhere.
I remember, so to your Sean Connery thing, I think in the moment it would have taken you out of the movie, but now, having gone back and watched it 100 times, I think it would be a really good thing.
I would have loved it.
Right? Like, I completely agree with Sam Mendes, and who am I to second guess Sam Mendes' creative choices, right? Like, the man's a genius. But yeah, it would have been cool to have Sean Connery in there for the rewatches. For the first time, I understand, a little weird, but for the rewatches, it would have been great.
It would have had the same reaction that we get when he opens up the door and he sees the old Aston Martin car, where it's just that's what we came back for. These are the kind of like callbacks that we want to see.
Yeah, one thing I do want to say, I know we've talked about Silva Javier Bardem a lot, but as we're kind of getting to the end game here, the end of the movie, I really, really appreciated that there was no scene of Silva saying, "We've got to find them. Where are they going?" You know what I mean? Like, there was nothing like that. It was just like this assumption that he was going to be able to find them. And yeah, and the not knowing, the not seeing like his methods, the not seeing how was, I think, really like even more menacing. Like, they show up to the house and you just know they're gonna get there, and they don't explain it at all. It's just like, well, we've got to lead them some breadcrumbs, but we can't be too obvious, blah blah, whatever. Hughes talks about all that stuff, but I just really appreciate, I think the easy thing would have been to show Silva and his goons getting ready to go in there, and so I really liked that they didn't do that. And the second thing on Silva, at what point do you have a helicopter that plays your entrance music as you roll up to do some murder, right? That's like big league, next level. You have made it in your life when you just got a helicopter playing your theme music when you show up to do some killing.
That's all I want in life. Is for when I open my car door at one point, it's just to be like, Casey's the man, going to work type thing. Like, Eye of the Tiger, just customized to me like that.
Yeah.
What a crazy thing too. And like I don't know, Javier Bardem. I think that what's really cool is if you kind of think about it, the Bond family estate is in the middle of nowhere, right?
Yeah.
So all the tech that Silva has, Javier Bardem, like means nothing out there pretty much. It's all about wit and your ingenuity as a murderer.
And
I don't
ammo.
It goes, yeah, it goes back to the theme of the old versus the new. You know,
Right.
at what point does something become obsolete? And the answer is that nothing is ever obsolete. It just depends on the situation. In my opinion, that's what I got out of it.
I definitely think one of my favorite scenes was the. Sorry, Casey. I don't know which way you're pointing. I don't know.
I was
how
pointing at
see
you
it.
actually, Josh, because that's where you are on my screen.
Oh,
Me? Okay, good. I think that probably my favorite scene, just like it was pretty short and whatever, and even though it didn't involve him as much, Javier, I think one of my favorite scenes was when freaking James Bond falls into a frozen lake and chokes out a man, starts to swim up, realizes that he needs, what is it, like the gun or something off of him, or like the flashlight? I don't remember, like something to break
I
through
think it's
the
a flare
ice.
gun or something.
Oh, right, the flare, and he has to like swim back down and get it, and then go all the way back up to get through that. That was like a super crazy, ridiculous sequence of events that I was just like, this is ridiculous. This is amazing.
It's really cool. And I do love how we finally wrap back around because like we were talking about, the series kind of goes from this seriousness and kind of ends this movie with back where we were in the past, you know, with Bond like walking in and having the old M be there and him going on his like missions. And we finally get James Bond like doing quips again at the end of the movie where he comes in and he ends up killing Silva, and Judi Dench asks him, "What took you so long?" And he just turns to her and he's just like, "Sorry, I got into some deep water," or something like that. Like, we finally get the James Bond quip that we haven't had for 3 movies now.
I would like to ask the mechanics of choking somebody out underwater.
I don't know.
I thought he broke his neck.
I just thought like he like wrapped his leg or something around, and it looked like the wrestling hold, but I don't know.
But you're already under. Oh, maybe is it the blood flow, not the oxygen? Am I like an?
Well,
am I an
maybe
idiot
like
here?
the thought of being choked out underwater causes him to panic, thus drowning himself.
So he's gonna now. It wasn't necessarily being. It was the thought of being choked out while underwater. It's double asphyxiation. Not in the good way.
That is definitely interesting. I did not think about that.
Yeah, it's the first time it occurred to me. I'm like, I don't know about choking somebody out underwater. It seems like that's a moot point. Like, hey, come on, bud. Like, knock it off.
That's
like,
it's just one that
We're both going through this. Stop.
Yeah.
that's the one that the executive assistant that caught the gloves thing. She missed that one. They're like, all right, we filmed the scene where James chokes out someone underwater, and they're just like. Or maybe she thought about it, but she's like, they already had to do this other like $1 million like thing. Like, I don't want to bring up another one. Like, he already can't breathe. Okay.
Yeah, I want to bring up a few things if I can really quickly.
Go ahead.
First of all, the excavator on the train. I mean, that's awesome.
That was crazy.
Right?
So that was one of my fun facts. That entire sequence was actually planned to be in India and was supposed to have a whole bunch of like native people on the train, like being pushed out of the way and jumping off the train and stuff. But India would not let them come film in their country because they felt like it would portray their country in a negative way.
Right. Correct. Probably.
So this way, I think though, I've never seen anything like that before.
Yeah,
I prefer this. I think
nuts. Like just the coolest thing, right? Like just I'm going to use this thing to get you. Depleted uranium, is that the coolest metal? Right. So the bullets that he gets shot with, remember like I've seen this movie way too many times.
Well, this is like at the beginning, right? When he pulls out cuts
bullets.
him out of himself and he's like, here, test these. And they're like, oh, it's old depleted uranium. Like,
yeah, super rare metal, only used by 4 known villains. All I know is, should I ever become an international man of mystery, I want depleted uranium rounds. I want depleted uranium everything because it's the coolest sounding metal, right? Like, it's depleted uranium. Like, I don't know. That was just really cool to me. I like the point where Bond points at the Komodo dragon. Like, he falls into the pit, they're fighting, and then the Komodo dragon comes out, and he stops fighting, and he just kind of points like, We have bigger problems. You and I have our differences. This dragon's going to eat us. We are both about to get eaten. Yeah, there's just this point of shock, like, oh, Bond's not afraid of anything except for, I guess, Komodo dragons.
Can't really blame him for that one.
Yeah.
If
You
you
see
saw a
that thing
freaking
grab
dragon
that
came
dude
at
and
you,
just drag him back into that layer? That's terrifying. I'm sketched out by lizards, and that's all my wife wants is to get a lizard in her house. And I'm like, no. Think about this. This lizard is designed to kill. That's all it's thinking about. It's like, can I drag you into my little den, my little water dish area? Is it even a small lizard? That's how I feel
the
about
taste
lizards.
of man flesh. You're right. Yeah, you're right to be scared of lizards. I think after watching this
Legend has it he still eats that man to this day.
Yeah, I think those were those are the big ones.
Okay, cool. I got a couple of fun facts here to run through too. So first one, that island, Silva's Island, is a real island off the coast of, I think, Nagasaki, if I remember right. They used to mine on that island, but it is uninhabitable at this point. The James Bond suits, they had to make 85 different versions of the Tom Ford suit just for that opening chase scene. They had different suits depending on what they're doing. They had to have a suit with like longer sleeves when he rode the motorcycle, so the sleeves wouldn't roll up. They had to have a tighter one in his close-up shots, so he looked awesome. And then when he was doing his fight scenes, they had to have a loose one. They had so many different suits for him to wear throughout the entire movie. Like I said, just for that opening sequence, 85 different versions of that suit were made.
I guess that makes sense. Like him fighting and doing all that stuff, he would have to have the different suits. But like, could you imagine if if James Bond actually like wore a tight James Bond suit for like an entire fight? He'd like get back home and like the arms are ripped and he's got a crack like down his butt and stuff, and he's just like, "Hey man, I had to do what I had to do. All right."
John Wick would have only worn one suit.
Yeah.
That's
a whole other conversation. Who wears it best, John Wick or James Bond? We can get into that another time.
It's James Bond. John Wick looks great in the suit, but I mean, it's James Bond, right? Like,
I'm with you.
I think James Bond wears it better because, like, I could see like James Bond in the middle of a fight, like, you know, like straightening his lapel or like a tie or something.
Cuffs. Yeah,
he fixes his cuffs. Where like John Wick, like he's just, and it's not like he's like more or less badass. Like I said, we could get into that, but John Wick has like a whole like gash in his shirt and stuff. He'd just be like, "Screw you guys." Like,
well, he doesn't shake
the joy of John Wick. That's the reason you wear the suit, is to look cool, bleeding and bloody, and like John Wick's suit has like actual purpose and function to it, and James Bond is just to look like a dapper man. Like,
yeah, he doesn't know if he's gonna have to have sex real quick. He just really doesn't. Like, oh shoot, are there women here? Am I gonna have to have sex with some of them? I don't know. Dude, which one is it? You have to be ready. John Wick, like he's no. He just needs one that's can clean really easy for dog hair, right? He needs to get the dog hair off of his suit. So that's what he's worried about, John Wick.
And the blood.
Man, all of this for a freaking puppy. Okay, moving on.
Okay, last two, and then we can wrap this up. For the motorcycle race in Turkey, Coca-Cola actually sprayed the tarmac, the streets in Istanbul with So they sprayed the streets in Istanbul with Coca-Cola so that the wheels of the motorcycles could grip the sugar from the soda easier on the streets, and it made them able to do those sick moves. I thought that was
cool. That's really cool. I didn't know that.
And then the last one, which is interesting, reportedly sales of cutthroat razors increased by around 400% in the week following this movie's launch. Wow. Everyone thought that must have been the coolest thing, seeing James Bond being shaved with a cutthroat razor by a sexy lady.
Yeah, all the guys are like, "Honey, shave me."
Also, coincidentally, the amount of throat cuttings went up 400% as well.
There have been a lot of sex scenes in James Bond history, but I can't imagine being more uncomfortable watching any of those with my father than I was watching the cutthroat scene. Of it, nothing happens. She just shaves him, and I'm just like, "Oh man!" So, getting warm in here, or what? You know, like
Even after the Silva James Bond little sexually charged interaction,
Look,
was that
that's
more
like,
awkward than
well,
that
no,
one?
because that's very high pressure, high tense, and that her just like shaving him is just like, wow, this is intimate. This is a very intimate scenario that I
It's
found
hot.
myself in. Also, how long have I been alone? How long have I been without my wife now? Yeah, okay, I'm aware, painfully aware. You can do a lot of things over
I read a
FaceTime, but
news article.
you can't shave over FaceTime. So
Here, honey, just pretend like you're shaving
Yeah.
my face. Nice.
yeah,
And that's it. That's all I got. I guess to
man.
wrap it up, my final thoughts are top James Bond movie, and I don't know if it's gonna be beat. I'm pretty sure I went over that at the beginning of the series or the beginning of the episode, but I'm still. This is perfect. This is the perfect mix of old and new James Bond, and it's fun without being corny, and it's dark without being too dark. I don't know. It's great. I love it.
And Vince, I don't. So, as far as like with you saying it's not going to be beat and everything, I feel like we already have somewhat of a letdown in the release of the new theme song for the new movie. Did you feel the same as I did? Because I know you like Billie Eilish. I do as well. So with the new No Time to Die song by Billie Eilish, did you feel like a little let down as far as a James Bond theme with that song?
I can't. I have to save my judgment because I kind of feel like the song by itself can be great, like Skyfall is, but the song in context with the intro of the movie and the what do they call that beginning sequence? That beginning, like the credits at the beginning,
title
the way
scene
that
or whatever
the
title
title
sequence.
scene. Yeah, it depends. It all depends on how they tie it all together visually and audibly. Um, I will admit it wasn't my favorite. I love Billie Eilish, but it wasn't my favorite Bond song. It does pick up about halfway through, but
I was about to say,
again,
I was like, I go through like 2/3 of that song being like, okay, like I get it, and then the last third, I'm like, this is pretty good. Like I like this.
yeah, exactly. But
I
again,
didn't even listen to
I
the
think
whole
everything they
the
did
whole
with this
song.
movie is kind of peak James Bond, and I hope, I really do hope that they can do one better for me. But I love the intimacy of this movie, and I love the callbacks, and I love the new, and I love everything that they did with it. And it just, you're never bored in this movie. I don't know how I was bored in the theater. I like this time
that was a
around. I was
crazy
just
thing you said.
enthralled
Yeah,
the whole thing.
I love this movie. I think it's like super super rewatchable. Like you said, I have seen it so many times, but it'd been probably a year since the last time I'd watched it, and it was just so good. Again, there's so many things you pick up on, like the pointing, the tracksuit that James Bond wears that we didn't even get into. We didn't really get into like some of the other stuff like at MI6, but it's just such a good movie. I think the fact that it has heart really makes it stick out, just like you said. So,
There
man,
you
at Skyfall.
go. Skyfall.
And the sky fall.
This movie was excellent, and I think that we can all agree on that one. I don't know. Anything else before we kind of close this one out? Really, Andrew, thank you for joining us. It's actually really fun to have someone who's a mega fan, I think, kind of talk with us about this, because you know a lot of stuff about Bond. I can tell.
Oh, thanks. I was a little worried we were gonna get a little more into trivia, so I'm glad we didn't because I'm a little rusty. But yeah, I love James Bond, and if you guys want to do a podcast where we watch all the James Bond movies and then we rank them, I'm down to clown. But I mean, I,
So,
I, this pandemic has got us all watching a lot of stuff. So
well, we may have to do like a Bond ranked kind of like post or something. I don't know. Like it could be kind of fun to look at it. Josh, congrats on watching your first Bond film. Bravo to you.
Andrew, what with knowing that he is just barely getting into the Bond franchise, what would you recommend he watch after Skyfall?
this is a great question. So you've definitely got to do Casino Royale and Quantum of Solace. Quantum of Solace isn't that good, but you still need to watch them because you need to see the Daniel Craig movies. and I'm gonna watch Spectre soon. So yeah. After that, all the Sean Connery ones. Well, Doctor No, From Russia with Love, and Goldfinger are really, really good. Thunderball, I'm just looking at the list right now, is like okay. You Only Live Twice, so I'm not going to go through it. Live and Let Die, I think, is my second favorite Bond movie. No, third, because I like Casino Royale. But Live and Let Die is Roger Moore. Super,
Right.
super good. For Your Eyes Only is really good. Octopussy is really good. I mean, with a name like that, super good. And
Watch that
then,
one with your mother.
yeah.
License
And
to Kill, I would throw in there.
really, see, I don't like the Timothy Dalton ones. I don't like as much.
I watched that one a lot when I was a kid, and it was the most violent, I think, out of the James Bond movies that I had seen, and just, that rebellious thing of just like, check this out, this guy's head explodes in the decompression chamber, and this guy's
Yeah.
chopped up in the thing. It's just like,
Well, it's like
I'm
the
a kid, I'm rebelling, the violence.
Schwarzenegger version. Like if there was a Sylvester Stallone 80s action movie, they're like, this is gonna be the Bond we're gonna do. So hyper violent. So they're okay. And then, like you said, I love Goldeneye. I think Goldeneye can stand up with any James Bond movie. It's really good. It's crazy that the drop off for the rest of the Pierce Brosnan movies, like Goldeneye was so good, and then the rest of them are hot garbage. But you really, I'm sure there's a ranked list that you can find somewhere where it ranks the best of them. But those, those first couple, Dr. No, From Russian with Love, and Goldfinger are amazing. And then for Roger Moore, Live and Let Die. Oh, The Spy Who Loved Me is really good too. For Your Eyes Only and Octopussy are all really good. So
Awesome.
That's a good
I'll
list.
make sure
That's
to check
solid.
them
Here's
out.
your homework.
3
I
weeks
mean,
later, Josh, I've watched every James Bond film.
I'm super
I wonder
busy,
how-
staying here at home.
Well, I think we should call it a night, to be honest with you guys. I think this has been a really insightful, fun, and kind of thoughtful podcast on Skyfall. I enjoyed it. I think more people should talk Bond. And so, yeah, I think we might have to do another one of these just because it was fun. It's kind of fun to see the tech that you don't really think of. And weirdly enough, I was thinking about this as kind of we were going through. I've been scrolling through my phone looking at tech from past James Bond movies. So we may have to do like a James Bond tech, like just a tech episode, because that could
That'd
be
be
kind of fun.
Yeah.
gadgets and tech. That would be
Ranking
cool.
our favorite James Bond gadgets. Oh,
We should
there we
really
go.
do that. I think
Put
that would
that
be
on the
fun.
thing,
Maybe
we're
we
doing
do
it.
one of those later in the week. But I was thinking of how much, I don't know if you guys remember this, like the Sony Ericsson phones that they used to use, like in all the Bonds. I still think of Sony Ericsson phones all the time. I'm like, oh, like maybe there's a new Sony Ericsson phone. I don't even know if they still make those phones anymore, but that is ingrained in my mind because of the James Bond movies. So it's kind of cool that kind of the random things you pick up and the tech you remember and the tech that you remember later. So yeah, I think we should do that sometime. So once again, Andrew, thank you for tuning in.
And if Andy, if you want to come back for another movie, just let us know. Bring a movie to the table, and we'll make it happen.
Hey,
It doesn't have to be James Bond. Any of your favorites. We'd be happy to have you back.
well, it sounds like we've got to do Waterworld then.
I've been trying to get Waterworld done for how long have we been doing this podcast? 6 months?
Almost a year, actually, guys.
Oh wow!
No way.
Yeah,
When did we start?
we're at like 3 months short of a year.
Well, I
Because we
guess we
first
did.
started in June.
Yeah, our first episode was like, what are going to be our favorite like summer movies of 2019? So
Wow, yeah, I guess you're right.
that's right.
So yeah, anyway, my point is, I've been trying for almost a year now, and these guys just won't give in.
I'll do Waterworld.
We've said we'll do it at some point. At some point.
Yeah.
Also, the fifth element.
No, we'll for sure make sure that we do it.
And when you guys are ready for like a Bachelor
right.
in Paradise weekly review with me, I'm your guy. Like I'm here, the straight man's guide to Bachelor in Paradise. Super solid. I think it can really boost your listenership here.
Mm-hmm.
I'll probably be sick that episode. I don't know. But guys, this has been a riot. This has been fun. As per usual, thank you so much for tuning in to the Pause, Ride, and Play podcast. Find us on Instagram. Find us on Twitter. Find us on Facebook. Find us on our website at prppodcast.com. And especially check us out on YouTube. Vince has been putting in an insane amount of work into making videos for us and kind of like transferring the stuff over. And it's been really fun to kind of see the product and kind of see it out there on YouTube. So if you're like me and you randomly browse YouTube and you want to get 400 videos deep in, we got like 25, 30, maybe 50 videos up right now of our podcast. Get lost in those. Just listen to them while doing your work from home. Who knows? Whatever else it might be. But anything else, guys, before we kind of close out our spiel?
Just thanks again for tuning in, everybody. We're super glad to be able to talk about these movies with you, and hopefully that you can come here as sort of an escape from all of the crazy crap that's happening in the world right now. Make sure, so a couple weeks ago we did Onward as one of our episodes. Really great movie. It's out now streaming on Disney Plus, so you can access it if you have Disney Plus. Watch the movie and then check out our podcast episode about it and let us know what you think, what your thoughts were on it.
Heck yes, heck yes. Thank you, Josh, for that. And with that, let's axe the episode. You guys have a wonderful time with the rest of your day, night, evening, weekend, year. I don't know, whatever time of your life this might be. And Andrew, once again, thanks for joining us. And everyone else, thanks for tuning in. And we'll catch you next time on the Pause, Rewind, Play podcast.